Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Candace and I am a new eBay reseller. I'm going to share with you in this video all of the items that have sold so far in my 4th month of being open on eBay. I have about 3 weeks worth of sales to cover with you. The sales I made in between 10:30 all the way up till 11:23. And that gets me right over 3 weeks. I will be covering all of those items, the date that I listed that item, the date that I sold that item, so you can see how long it sat on my store shelf, and then how much it actually sold for, and any other interesting facts along the way. This is an area for you to observe, learn, take in my experience, and hopefully apply it to your own experience. I try and give you as much detail as I possibly can on some of the things I may have done differently or some wins that I'm really excited about. Give you all of it, the whole scoop. So let's go ahead and get started with my first item. First up, I have this vintage hunting rifle case. And when I saw this at the bin, so I picked this one up at Goodwill Outlet. It kind of looked a little funky and unique, and that has my name written all over it. I picked it up and I pulled it out and I was like, what is this? And then when I opened it up and I saw all of the interior lining on it and saw how great of condition it was, I got really excited and I featured it on my video, sharing all the details about it. And wouldn't you know it, someone who saw that video got really excited and went to my store and bought it. So this is the first experience for me of a viewer out there shopping in my store. So thank you to whoever that was, and I am so grateful for the awesome and positive review. It is much appreciated. Happy hunting on that one. I actually ended up only getting this. I listed it on 10/16 and I sold it on 10/30. So I turned it around pretty quickly and it ended up selling for $51.50. I would easily say that that is an amazing profit for me, and compared to some other ones that I've sold, that was a great deal for my buyer. So all in all, both of us very, very happy and incredibly grateful for that sale. Next up, I have this vintage 80s, 90s leather bomber jacket. And this one too was picked up at Goodwill Outlet. And I have to say, I wrestled with it a little bit because when I first did some comps on it, I didn't see that many that had sold from this brand. But at Goodwill Outlet, you pay by the pound. And so I thought to myself, it's a fairly heavy jacket. It was really thick. As you can see here, it is got that thin soulate interior lining, which means it's extra warm. And so I had to really think to myself, okay, like if I'm going to be paying, by the pound, and this is at least a few pounds, is this going to be worth it on the turnaround? And so I took a chance on it, and I'm really happy that I did. Even though it was not in perfect condition, I figured I was going into fall, winter season, and that it should sell. I listed it on 9/22 and it ended up selling on 11/1. So timing wise, like time of the year, that totally made sense. And I'm really excited because it ended up selling for $47.95, which even though I paid up at the bins because it was so heavy, I would guess it was probably around 4 or 5 pounds. So I paid close to $8 or $9 for it. Turning that around to sell it for almost $50 was so worth the risk. Anyways, I'm really glad and grateful for that sale. Next up, I have this hunter run dress. And I will say, when I first picked this one up at Goodwill Outlet, I looked at the tag and I tried to do as much research on the fly as I could, and I could not find this brand anywhere. It was vintage, clearly from the tag, and all the other research I had kind of done definitely pointed at vintage. And so I was like, okay, it's a vintage dress and it was in excellent condition. And I've been hearing this word prairie core a lot, and it's very much in style right now. And this dress totally fit that aesthetic. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick it up and list it. And even though it's not like spring, summertime, because it kind of had that feeling, I figured someone could probably put a cute little coat over it or maybe a long sleeve underneath it. And hopefully it'll sell even though it's getting colder. And you know what? It did. And I'm really grateful that it did. I listed it on 9/5 and I sold it on 11/2. Ended up selling it for $24.99. So nice turnaround on that one because it wasn't that heavy of an item. Next up, I have this eBags backpack, and I featured this and talked about it on one of my previous videos about how it had already sold. So you do already know that this sold if you watched that video, but I do have to feature it here and talk about it again. What a wild pickup. I tell you, when I go to the Goodwill outlets, I always go to the bag section and always pick up like briefcase looking backpacks. And this one, actually, I didn't realize it was a backpack at first because the straps were kind of tucked away and hidden. I just thought maybe it was like a hard shell briefcase, a little bit of a sportier look. When I went home and I kind of did more research and took it apart a little bit, I realized it was a backpack and it was kind of a travel on the go. It had so many functions to it. Either way, as you can see here, this is like not my normal photograph setup. I just kind of took a picture of it in my room quickly so I could get it up and going, and it sold super quick for me. And I wanted to because I knew it was going to. It had over 100% sell-through rate, and the color that I had, black, was not as prevalent in the listings. A lot of them that were listed were gray, and so I was like, okay, if I get my black backpack up there, hopefully it sells quickly, and it did. I listed it on 11/1 and I sold it on 11/3. Like, whoa, so excited on how quickly that turned around, and I sold it for $65. So all in all, what an amazing grab, and I am so happy on that one. Next up, I have this NASA Buzz Aldrin hoodie, and I grabbed this one at Goodwill Outlet. Didn't really do much research. I thought NASA, cool brand, easy pickup. It was in great condition. Well, I listed it on 8/21 and I didn't end up selling it until 11/4, and I sold it for a really low price. $8.50 is what it ended up selling for. I was really bummed. When I came home and did further research on sold comps, I realized that they were only selling for around $10, which I'm not against $10 sales, but for the weight of that item and what I ended up paying for it, I was not super happy with. Either way, it's okay. I ended up selling it and I made a profit, just not a very big profit, a couple bucks. But anyways, I ended up moving and I'm very grateful for that. Next up, I have this beautiful vintage Hallmark pop-up card decor. I ended up getting this at Goodwill Outlet, and let me tell you, I was shocked to high heaven that it was still in decent condition. If you've ever been to Goodwill Outlet, and you'll hear me talk about it a lot in this video and in all my other videos, that's kind of my go-to spot where I find stuff to thrift for. Anyways, it's crazy there, and stuff gets broken all the time. Things get ripped, smashed, you name it. And so when I went to a bin that, mind you, was already picked through, okay? So people had already come and rummaged through. I found this thing kind of off to the side, and I pulled it out and I was like, what is this? It looks vintage. Of course, it's got my name written all over it. And I pulled it out, and the pop-up card itself was in excellent condition. It's from the 1950s. So after doing further research, I found that Hallmark came out with this line of pop-up card decor items. It was intended for individuals who wanted to have easy home decor for the holidays, and it was like a no fuss approach. You just take it right out of the envelope, you pop it up, you put it on your counter, and the ambiance is transformed. Really, really cool piece of history, and what an excellent piece of holiday decor. I knew that this was kind of like the perfect time to get it because Christmas was coming up, and sure enough, it sold for $39.95. What? I paid less than $1 for this thing because you pay by the weight at Goodwill Outlet, and this thing was super light. 40 bucks. What an amazing turnaround on that. I ended up listing it on 9/11 and sold it on 11/5. So I knew that I was going to wait on that one. I didn't think anyone was going to buy it back in September, and I was totally happy with that and ended up making an amazing profit on that one. So hold out for the good Christmas stuff and keep your eyes peeled for these Hallmark cards. I noticed when I went to go find comps, there wasn't that many out there. So if you find one, you might have a one-of-a-kind item. All right, on to the next. Here I have this Nerds baseball-themed candy mug. I picked this item up at Goodwill, a Goodwill store, and it was one of the first items I thrifted for on either trip 1 or 2. I can't really remember. Either way, it was an okay purchase. Okay, it was not that great of a purchase. And I'm going to tell you why. It was the price I paid versus the popularity, the demand for the item and what it ended up selling for. So I really just didn't really know what I was doing in the beginning. And there's a handful of items you're going to see that sold recently for me that were from like the early days. Which I am so grateful that they are selling, but I have learned a lot from making those purchases going forward into what it is that I sell, buy for the flip. So this item I ended up paying probably close to $2 or $3 on, and I ended up only selling it for a whopping $9.99. And so not that I'm against $10 sales, like I said this before, it just has to make sense with the amount that I pay for it and honestly how long I held on to it, because I listed it on 8/2 and I did not end up selling it until 11/5. So all in all, to make, a few bucks on something that took up a substantial amount of, space on my storage unit shelf because it's breakable. I can't really like stack it much. Anyways, the list goes on. All in all, I'm really happy that this sold, and it's really sweet. I got this note along with it when I told the buyer, I said, hey, I dropped off your item at the post office earlier, and the individual replied with a sweet note saying, thank you so much. My girlfriend loves Nerds, the candy Nerds, and I'm sending this to her so she doesn't forget about me. I guess in some amazing way, even though this was not a high profit item, and I thought this would never sell, I at least help salvage a relationship through the love of Nerds. Oh, gotta love it. I love this reselling gig. I encounter so many things. It's awesome. Anyways, on to the next item. Here we have these men's Fruit of the Loom boxer briefs, and the reason why I picked these up was for the unique sizing. You all have told me along the way that when something is of like a larger kind of unique size, that seems to be popular on eBay, and sure enough, these sold. They are a 3XB, so 3XB is different than a 3XL, and I'm learning. If you didn't know that, in at least Fruit of the Loom boxer briefs, I'm sure this is men's boxer briefs universally, I'm guessing. Anyways, the 3XB is like a roomier, wider cut, and when I went kind of digging down the rabbit hole, I realized that it was like classified. People look it up, they use key terms as a roomier cut or big man's cut, and so I tried to include the words that someone would look for in the title and in the description, which helped, I think, ultimately get them sold. I listed them on 9/2 and I sold them on 11/7, and I ended up selling them for $23.50. So a nice little turnaround and tidy profit on that. Here we have this NRA duffel bag, and it was in excellent condition when I picked it up at Goodwill Outlet. When I did run comps on it, it didn't seem to sell for much, but honestly, it was super lightweight and almost near, like I don't think anyone had used it. It was in great condition, and so that was an easy grab for me. I ended up listing it on 9/19 and I sold it on 11/8, and I sold it for $10. I think I went back and forth with the individual, and I was happy with $10 and got it shipped off to them. Up next, we have some vintage Pyrex here. It is a clear rectangular casserole dish, pretty straightforward, and it had some scratches on it. And you'll see here in this photography, it was one of the ones from my earlier days when I was trying my best to use natural lighting and get the angle right so you could see the clear, etching on the bottom and whatnot. It was not in perfect condition, and so I knew it wasn't going to go for a high price, and I ended up paying probably a little bit more than I was happy with. Ended up selling for only $15. I listed it on 8/20 and I sold it for 11/9. It was a fairly large and heavy item, and so I was happy to get that one moved. Next up, I have this really cool vintage barn coat, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually really bummed I don't have it in my store anymore. It made my store feel like I had a little more cachet. I guess this is just an excuse for me to go thrifting some more. Oh darn. Oh no, what will I do? All jokes aside, I am thrilled on this piece. It is a vintage barn coat from Woolrich, and it was in excellent condition for the age and everything. There was a little bit of wear on it, but honestly, like from some other coats I've seen come down the line to other coats I've ended up selling, this one was great. And it just had a really cool factor to it, the way that the pockets were cut on it, and it had the like buffalo nickel style buttons on it. All in all, this was an amazing jacket. I had it listed for close to $100, and I was certain I was gonna get close to that, and I did. I sold it for $90. So pumped. $90, and I listed it on $9.25, and it didn't end up selling until $11.09, but I figured as it got colder, and it was a higher price item, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to hold off because I'd gotten some lower offers, and I really stuck to my guns on that one because I knew it was worth what I ended up selling for, and I'm really, really, really grateful on that one. Next up, I have this a London fog trench coat, men's trench coat. And this actually was not in perfect condition, but I thought I'd take a chance on it. I had never sold a large vintage trench coat like this before, and it seemed like they're fairly sought after, and it being fall and all, I figured that it would at least get eyes on it, and it did. And very interesting enough, I ended up selling this to an international buyer. So long story short, I sell internationally now. Super cool. I didn't at first, but once I signed up for an actual paid eBay storefront, I think about 6 weeks ago, I ended up enrolling in the eBay International program. And I was nervous at first, but after talking to my aunt, she was like, this is just such an easy program to be a part of. And sure enough, it is. So when somebody buys from me, since I'm a part of the eBay International program, I don't just offer international shipping. Two different things, by the way. You can always go down and you can offer international shipping, but then you have to deal with like all of the customs and stuff like that. Do yourself a favor. Look into what it is to become a part of the eBay International Shipping Program. Anyways, I made the sale, and then it had me ship my item to a universal United States address location. And then from there, which is like eBay's plant of, items they receive that are going to go out internationally, they then deal with U.S. customs and, whatever processes that is to ship things internationally. They deal with it and they ship it to the buyer internationally. Like the easiest thing I've ever done. I literally shipped it just like I would anything else, but really cool. Someone in Canada wanted my coat. And I ended up selling it for $45. Got it at the bins. So I paid by the pound. It was fairly heavy, so I think I probably paid closer to $7 or $8 on it. But hey, turned it around for $45. Super pumped on that. I listed it on 10.6 and I sold it on 11.9. So all in all, a really smooth, awesome international eBay selling experience. Next up here, I have these kids' Carhartt overalls, and they were, again, a Goodwill bins find, and they were in excellent condition when I got them. I sold them for $10, and I listed them on $8.31 and sold them on $11.10. Here we have this Houston Texans beanie, and when I picked it up at Goodwill Outlet, I was a little apprehensive because I have not had the best of luck selling used beanies. I see beanies that are sold on eBay that are new. And while this is my second one that I've sold, I just don't see them in droves. I picked it up anyways because it was very unique and it looked high quality. It was by the company New Era, and it ended up selling for $15. So I'm really pleased with that. $14.97, and I listed it on $9.12 and it sold on $11.10. So there you have it. Okay, I am halfway through. Let's go ahead and keep this train moving. Next up, I have this 101st Screaming Eagles Airborne U.S. Air Force hat. And I have to tell you, this is the sweetest story. This was another viewer that ended up buying something from my store. I'm so grateful when you all see unique, fun items and you want to get them from my eBay store. I appreciate your business. The buyer for this hat ended up sending me a note along with their offer saying their connection to this hat, and I was excited to make this sale happen for them. It was really awesome because the sale actually came through on Veterans Day, and this hat was going to a veteran. And you all know my passion for this country. I am a patriot through and through. And so it was an amazing experience and fun timing for my kiddos. We got to talk about the hat and the sale that was made and who it was going to. So really, all in all, a really positive experience for us. Shout out for the amazing and beautiful review. I'm very, very grateful for that. So, all right, go ahead and let's go on to the next one. Here we have some khaki pants from the company Duckhead. When I got these at Goodwill Outlet, I pulled them out of the stack and I saw that like giant yellow tag on it and knew to myself that they were unique in a sense and they felt high quality. After looking them up, I was like, oh, these are popular and they sell. And sure enough, they sold for me too. I listed them on 10.9 and I sold them on 11.11 and they sold for $22. Next up, I have this lot of women's glasses, and after learning later, I should have put in the title frames only because I didn't know the prescription on these. And I should have changed it along the way because I actually had a couple people reach out to me asking what it was. You live and you learn. Anyways, this was actually one of the very, very first things I purchased for the flip. Like from day one, very first video I made. I didn't know what I was doing, but I saw these and they were super cute. And I got the two of them together for $1. And so I was like, okay, this is a low risk situation. And I ended up bringing them home. They were really like no name brand, and that's okay. They ended up selling. Did they sell for a high profit? No, but they did sell for a profit still. And I got a good review out of it. So all in all, it was a win. I listed them on 7/27 and they sold on 11/11. So they took several months to sell and ended up selling for $10.99. Next up, I have these Starbucks pins. They're employee pins. And I was at Goodwill Outlet and I was digging down through the bin and I saw these amongst some other stuff, kind of all in a little baggie. And I pulled them out and ended up getting, so I was like, you know what? These are employee pins, they're collector, and they weighed next to nothing. So I paid next to nothing for them. So even though I sold them, you'll see here, I sold them for $6. That's still a profit. And I bought them for next to nothing. And I ended up only, I listed them on 10/17 and they moved for me and sold on 11/11. So $6 a couple weeks, that's better, right, than the glasses from before that sold for not that much more and sat there forever. So I guess short amount of time, little profit. All in all, still making money. All right, let's go on to the next item. Here we have this vintage Polo by Ralph Lauren teal kind of like beachwear hat. And I actually got this item at an estate sale. This is the same estate sale and the same gentleman that I ended up buying the Vietnam War uniform from. And so when I was at his house, I ended up buying a whole bunch of stuff from his house. And this was one of those items. This was in really poor condition, okay? But I noticed vintage Ralph Lauren hats are so popular. Bolo, be on the lookout for that. And even though it's the Chaps brand is like the lower tier. It's just like not as premium, I guess. Either way, still very collectible, I noticed. And so I thought to myself, okay, let me take it home and I'm going to do my darndest to get this sucker cleaned up as best as I can. And you bet your bottom dollar I did. I did Dawn dish soap to get out as much of the stains as possible. I did OxyClean soak, like 2 of them. And I put in a lot of effort into this thing. And it does not look perfect still, but it was sellable and it ended up selling. It sold for $30. I'm so grateful for that. I mean, that's expensive for an old hat. Well, at least from ones that I've sold before. And anyways, yeah, $30, and I listed it on 9/12 and it ended up selling on 11/12. So it only took a couple months to sell. I think it's because I had it listed higher. I had it listed close to $40, but for really great condition, Polo by Ralph Lauren hats that were vintage were selling for way more than that. I mean, like there was some that were like over $100. It was crazy. So mine being in poor condition, I felt like it was an appropriate price. And someone else, we negotiated a little bit, met in the middle, and I was happy with 30. So all in all, a great sale. Be on the lookout for vintage Ralph Lauren hats. All right, next, another hat. I sell hats frequently. I've talked about this before. Whenever I'm at Goodwill bins or outlets, or I am always on the lookout for hats, and they don't always sell for crazy amounts, but they're steady for me. And so that's why I always take a look at them and pick them up. Here we have it. This Valspar PGA Tour hat sold for, I put it up, I think for $19-ish, ended up selling for $16.50. I listed it on 9/6 and it sold on 11/12. Next up, I have this vintage Pyrex. It is a casserole dish with a lid, and it is like the town and country, and it had like a little bit of a imperfection on one side, and I think that's why it took so long to sell. It was listed on 7/26 and sold on 11/13, and it sold for $17. And this item was actually shopped at home from my house, so like no extra cost to me on that, so all profit, which is good. I was quite honestly just trying to, shop at home for stuff, because that's like the easiest thing and most practical thing when you're trying to do your reselling business, is like take stuff from your house, declutter. I have a lot of kitchen stuff. I actually have a lot of just dining stuff, glassware. I have like 2 sets of china. Oh, well, you know what? I have a story on that. One set of china was from like my wedding registry. You get married, and we got really so blessed. We got gifted so many things, and basically got gifted all of my china set for my wedding. I love it dearly. Love it, love it. And we use it when we can. And then the other set is from my grandmother. And it was really funny actually. I remember growing up using this china that she had for special occasions. It's blue willow china, and I'll put a picture of a piece up here so you can see it. It's very sweet and so special and near and dear to my heart. It's very nostalgic. She has collected it over like 40 or 50 years. And I noticed, like, as all of us kids started growing up and we started moving out and like having kids and stuff, and she just wasn't the person to host, parties like she once was before. And it just, the craziness of life with moves and whatnot, I noticed she just wasn't using it anymore. And I said something, "Oh, Grandma, I love that Blue Willow set. It's so beautiful." I don't even know what I said to her. She said, she's so funny. She's like, "Oh, you can have it when I'm dead," kind of thing like that. And I don't want my grandmother to pass away. I said, "Well, I don't want to be sitting here waiting for you to die." I said, "If you're not going to use it, why do I got to wait for you to die? If you're going to give it to me anyways, let me use it now." You don't use it anymore. And she hadn't used it in years. And she kind of shrugged it off, and we laughed and didn't say anything about it. And sure enough, when she came to visit me, at one point, some months down the line, she came with it. And she brought it in all the boxes. She's like, "Here, you don't have to wait till I'm dead. Here it is." So I love it and I cherish it. And I serve her food on it. I cook for her and I serve her food on it when I can. We use it at, at holidays and celebrations and stuff. So anyways, so I have an excuse to have 2 sets of china. That's where I was going with that story. But I don't have an excuse to have every set of Pyrex under the sun. And so that's why I have sold personal pieces. But I do have one collection I'm trying to kind of stick with, which is like the bicentennial collection now. So, but more on that in another video, apparently. Let me continue to tell you what is sold. I have a handful more items. Let's keep going. Okay, next up, this one is for like my OG viewers. If you've been here for a long time, or if you've gone back and you watched the old stuff, you saw me talk about how I was a crazy lady at an estate sale, rummaging through the bins of remotes. Well, it is finally paid off. I was at an estate sale and I was at like the last minutes of it before it was going to close, and I saw this bucket of remotes and like electronics in one of the rooms, which was like the office. I went digging and I put a whole bunch of remotes into some grocery bags they had there. And I went over the front and I was like, oh, how much for the remotes? And they were like $1 for the whole thing, for the whole bag. So I basically got this remote for free. I go home and I look at all the remotes, and a handful of remotes were duds. Some had like corroded batteries in it, and some were just like not really functioning, but some were excellent. And I've actually been selling those remotes. And there was one prized remote and it sold. You guys, I basically paid like 10 cents for this remote. It is the Peterson Real Fire Transmitter only. It's like to a fireplace remote. I sold it for $59.99. What? I listed it on 8/2 and I sold it on 11/14. I was prepared to wait a while on that one because it's a $60 remote. And it's funny because how did you come to $60, Candace? How did you know it was going to be that much? Well, there isn't other ones listed out there. I think I had found one prior sale. I had a one-of-a-kind remote because when you go to look for this remote, you have to buy the transmitter with the like box set. They don't sell them separately unless you go to the manufacturer's website. And when you go to the manufacturer website to purchase this remote, they sell it for like $100 or $110, something like that. And so this is how I came to the conclusion that this was worth $60. And somebody needed it out there, and I had the one and only. $60. That's awesome. So be the crazy person who digs through the remote bin, I guess, is the moral of the story. I will continue to act crazy. I'm good with it. All right, on to the next one. Here we have a Coach purse dust bag, and I got this bundled in with a handful of items at an estate sale. So I think I paid close to like $1 or $2 on it, and it didn't sell for much. It sold for $10. I listed it on 9/14 and it sold on 11/15. Next up, I ended up selling one of the bags from my recent episode, Bags and Vintage Finds. There's this Solo leather roller briefcase, and it was in okay condition, but even in okay condition, I was seeing them sell, and sure enough, mine sold. I made sure to zoom up close on the pictures for all the imperfections, and I ended up selling it. Let's see here. I listed on 10/22 and I sold it on 11/15, and I sold it for $62.96. I paid by the pound on this one. I think this item was 5 or 6 pounds. So I paid close to $12 or $13 on it, and I sold it for $63. That's awesome. So nice little tidy profit and a quick turnaround on that. Here we have a vintage men's golf windbreaker. It is the brand AM Player. I've never really heard of this, and it doesn't seem to be super popular, but all in all, it ended up selling, I think, because it's vintage and it's golf. And this was a part of the giant lot that I ended up purchasing at an estate sale a while back for a bunch of vintage men's golf clothing. And it ended up selling for $26.95. Really pleased with that. I listed it on 9/4 and it sold on 11/18. So keep your eye out if you're ever out there for vintage golf clothing, vintage golf anything. I feel like I've had really good success with. So keep your eyes peeled. Next, I have this Wolverine bib. It is an insulated duck bib, like overalls that are for, it's workwear, and it's crazy. So when I picked this up at Goodwill Outlet, I saw that it was actually in pretty good condition. And I say that even though you'll see, I'll zoom up on some of these pictures, that it showed wear on the front, on the outside, like some black staining, like someone had knelt down or was working and stuff. But all in all, there was no like rips in the seams or at the corner. Like the structural integrity of it was solid. The interior part of it was in excellent condition. And so I felt confident and comfortable buying this because I have sold workwear items before. And people who need these items are usually looking for a good deal, and they're okay if it's like, you know, a little stained on the outside. And so sure enough, they ended up selling, because these typically brand new retail for over $100, these insulated ones. And I felt like, you know, with all the staining that this had on it, I listed it for $35. It sold for $35. And I feel like we were both happy with that, me and the buyer. And I listed it on 9/16 and sold it on 11/19. So even though they were pretty heavy, I think they were 3 pounds. So I paid a little under $6 for them. I still turned around and sold them for $35, which is great. So I am pleased with that one. Next up, I have this Grayson's Golf Rope Hat. And when I first grabbed this one from Goodwill and I featured it on a video not that long ago, I actually didn't recognize this brand at all, but I know rope hats are very popular right now. And so even without me looking into it, I picked it up because it was very lightweight. And so it's funny, I say, you know, I picked something up and I didn't look it up. You're probably thinking to yourself as you're watching this video, like, why didn't you look it up, Candace? You always are supposed to look stuff up before you leave. Listen, if you've ever been to Goodwill Outlet, you will know it is hard sometimes to look up every single little thing. You've got to work fast and you work in volume. And so there's just sometimes you got to go with your gut. I am praying that one day I won't have to look up every single little thing, that I'll have a really good barometer on what sells and what it sells for and what it is that I'm looking for. I'm trying to train my eye. I'm trying to get better every single time. But anyways, if you hear me say, well, I didn't look this one up, that's why. It was busy. It was crazy. I just had to do a gut, trust on it and take it with me. So this one ended up winning out. I don't always have winners, but this one did. I ended up, it actually sold really fast for me. I listed on 11/16 and it sold on 11/20, and it sold for $17.50. So I am super pumped on that one. Okay, I have 3 more items. Let's go ahead and finish this out. I sold this Carhartt Kids t-shirt, and it's very simple, orange t-shirt. It was in good condition. It looked like it had been washed a little bit, but all in all, there was no stains, no rips, no tears. So it was great. I listed it for $8.99, and it sold for that. And I listed it on 9/1, and it sold on 11/21. So quick, easy turnaround. I got it at the bin, so I paid next to nothing. All in all, not a super big profit, but still a profit. Next up, I sold this pea coat, a Coach pea coat, and I got this one at Goodwill Outlet. It was a crazy find. I found it in a picked over bin. When I say picked over, that means people had already had a chance to go pick items out of that bin, and I kind of came up a little bit later. I don't know, maybe someone threw it back. Either way, my lucky day. Pulled it out, and it had one little stain on the cuff here, but really it's not that noticeable, and I always disclose it in my listing. And someone ended up buying this for $59.95 for $60, and I paid by the pound, so only a couple bucks. So well, it was a little heavier, so I think it ended up being 2 or 3 pounds, so I ended up paying $6 or $7. Turning it around for $60 is a great profit. And I listed it on 8/21, and it ended up selling on 11/22. And the last item here is this vintage bridal va-va-voom lingerie piece. I figured, you know what, when you go through stuff at the bins, you see bras and underwears and things like that, and you don't ever get anything that's like modern, unless it's in excellent condition, or it's got new tags, or it just like doesn't look like it's used, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like that sell. But when it's vintage, that changes it. And this actually was in pretty good condition when I picked it up. There's like slight discoloration, and I zoom in on those pictures. I talk about it in the description. And they seemed to still sell. This brand seemed like it had a pretty good sell-through rate when I looked it up. And sure enough, it sold for me. And it sold For $29.95. I listed it on 10/2 and it sold on 11/23. And it was another international buyer. I ended up selling this item to someone in Japan. So look at me. I am an international salesman now. So here I go. I'm like on the global map now. I've made 2 international sales. I'm just like, I think I'm mostly excited because there's people from like other parts of the world that are interested in items that I've got. Like it just, I don't know, it's a cool feeling. So more to come. I cannot wait to update you again in the future. This week coming up is a busy one, I'm sure, for everyone, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and hopefully take something away from it that will help you in your business. You all have a wonderful week with your family. God bless, and I'll chat with you soon.